Good morning, dear students. Today we will continue with our epidemiological methods, that is, experimental studies. These experimental studies are similar to cohort studies, except that here we have the privilege of intervening in the process. So the study is carried out under direct supervision, or you can call it as a direct control of the investigator. So these experimental studies involve some kind of action, or you can call it as intervention or manipulation, so that deliberately we will apply or withdraw some suspected factor or changing one variable in the causative chain in experimental group while making no change in the control group and observing and comparing the outcome of experimental in both the groups. So for example, if you see, when I say application or withdrawal of a suspected cause, that is, for example, if you say sugar consumption in the causation of dental caries. Now, what we will do is either we withdraw the sugar consumption and see the causation of dental caries, how much dental caries is occurrence in the population or in that particular experimental group of people whom we are studying the effect of sugar in the occurrence of dental caries. Either we reduce the intensity of sugar consumption, so the number of times they consume sugar can be brought down, or withdrawn totally, so that we can establish that sugar consumption is one of the causative factor of dental caries. This we will see in the experimental group whom we are doing the experiment. Now let us see the aims of experimental studies. First and foremost, these studies are used for evaluating new drugs and other treatments of disease, including tests of new health and medical care technology. So any new drug that is coming into market or any new device that is to be used for the medical investigations or treatments or tests, it is done by the experimental studies. Now these trials can be used to assess the new program for screening of the people, where it can help us in early detection so that we can take the necessary preventive measures, and these screening programs can be organized and deliver health services to the target population. And these experimental studies are done to provide scientific proof in establishing the causative factor and to intervene these causative factors in the modification or control of those diseases. Finally, it helps to provide, so the experimental studies are done to provide a method of measuring the effectiveness and efficacy of health services that are provided. So we want to see the effectiveness and efficacy of those services for the prevention, control and treatment of diseases and improve the health of the community. So these are the four uses, aims where we apply experimental studies. Let us see the types of experimental studies. The first and foremost one is randomized controlled trial, that is involving a process of randomization here, that is random allocation. And the second one is non-randomized, or we call it as non-experimental design. Here we do not follow a typical randomization, but the study is done in such a manner that non-randomization does not affect the outcome of the study, or it will not affect the theoretical basis of the conclusions of the study done by this non-experimental design. So these are broadly two types of experimental studies. Let us see the first one, that is randomized controlled trials. In the randomized controlled trials, there are various steps. The first step is drawing a protocol. Second is selecting reference and experimental population. Third is randomization. Fourth, manipulation or intervention. Follow-up and assessment of the outcome. Let us see the first one, that is drawing up of protocol. Okay, before that, this is the flow chart explaining randomized control trial, which shows suitable population, that is reference or target group. From them we have selected the experimental and study population, then made necessary exclusions as ineligible and not eligible, then follow with the randomization. With that, in the randomization we allot the patients or the particular group into experimental and control group, manipulation and follow-up, and then assessment. Let us see the first one, that is protocol. Now, what is this protocol? This protocol is very important. It specifies the aims and objectives of the study. So what we are doing is an experimental study. So for any experimental study, for that matter, any study should have aim and objectives. Now here in the protocol, we mention first and foremost, we specify what is the aim of the study and what are the objectives of the study, and what questions needs to be answered. That means why we are performing that study and what is our question to identify. As I have told you earlier, dental caries and sugar consumption, or you can call it as oral hygiene measures and dental caries, or if you call it as tobacco smoking and oral cancer. Like this, we can do whatever the aim you want to study and what are the objectives has to be specified and are specified in the protocol, and what questions should be answered by this experiment what we are undertaking. And thirdly, criteria for the selection of study and control groups. What is that criteria we are going to follow in selecting the study group and control groups? Size of the sample, what kind of sample and how many people are to be involved or how many patients should be involved in the study has to be mentioned in the protocol and will be mentioned in the protocol. And the procedures for allocation of subjects into study and control group, how we are going to allot these people into study group and control group, and what all the treatments to be applied. Suppose if you are going for what kind of medication, what medication is used for the study group and what medication is used for the control group. That is mentioned in the protocol. When and where and how to what kind of patients these procedures are undertaken will be mentioned in the protocol. That means when it should be given, where it should be done, and how it is done, and what kind of patients. Like since we are allocating them into control and cases, the control group and study group, we have to specify all these things in the protocol. Now standardization of the working procedures, so we call it SOPs, and schedules as well as responsibilities of the patients involved. See, when we are doing an experiment, we are going to give certain medication to the patients in the study group and in the control group. So even the patients has to give their consent to follow whatever the instructions we are giving them, so that the study will not have any kind of bias or it cannot be invalid. So we need to have them also to understand the responsibilities, and this should continue till the stage of evaluation of the outcome of the study. And most importantly, once the protocol has been evolved, it should be strictly adhered to throughout the study. So once the protocol is written, it has to be adhered. There is no change in that and there is no lenience in that. Now sometimes you have to undertake a pilot study before you finalizing the protocol. So what is that we do in this pilot study? We undertake this pilot study to find out the feasibility or operationality of that particular study, or operational efficiency in certain procedures. Like when we are undertaking certain procedures, we will see whether that particular procedure is acceptable to the people or not, or it is not acceptable to particular group or not, or is it possible to perform that procedure there or not. All these kind of feasibilities are verified in the pilot study. And at the same time, the acceptability of the procedure also is assessed in this pilot study. It is important that the final version of the protocol should be agreed upon by all concerned before the trial begins. That means, whatever it is, once the protocol is finalized after taking up the pilot study, whatever the necessary measures you have taken, it should be agreed upon by all the concerned parties, that is study group and control group also, before the trial begins. So second is selecting the reference and experimental populations. Now the reference, that is target population. It is the population to which the finding of the trial, if found successful, are expected to be applicable. That is drug, vaccine. For example, if we have taken the reference population as a population of Andhra Pradesh. Now this is our target population. From this particular Andhra Pradesh, we will select the people whomever we want to do. Or if I take a smaller example, I would like to take the people from Narayana Dental College. From Narayana Dental College, I will select the people, because whatever the study I am doing, the final result, I will apply it to the whole Narayana Dental College. So it is the population to which the finding of the trial, if successful, should be applied. So a reference population may be as broad as a mankind, or it may be geographically limited or limited to a person in specific age, sex, occupation, or sex, social groups, etc. So it can be like a school children or industrial workers or doctors, any particular group. It depends upon the type of experiment we intend to undertake. So the reference population can vary from a small town like Nellore city, or it can go up to Andhra Pradesh, or it can go up to India also. It depends upon the type of study we are undertaking. Now experimental or study population. This is the actual population whom we are going to undertake the experiment. And these people are drawn from the reference population. Ideally, it should be randomly chosen from the reference population so that it has the same characteristics as the reference population. There should not be any difference from the reference population to this particular study population. It is important to choose a stable population whose cooperation is assured to avoid loss of follow-up. So it is very important to take into consideration, because we are taking an experimental study. There should not be any loss of follow-up. So you should always try to select a stable population. So this is about the study population. Now the participants must fulfill the following criteria. They must give an informed consent. That is, they must agree to participate in the trial after being explained totally about the purpose of the study, what are the procedures that are to be undertaken in that study, and what are the possible dangers or what are the possible side effects of the drugs we are trying in that experiment, should be explained to all the participants. And after that is known to the participant, with that knowledge, he should give his consent that yes, I am ready to participate in the study, and I have been told by the people who are doing this experiment, and I agree to participate in that study. This is called as informed consent. We have to take the consent. It is an ethical requirement that you have to take the consent. They should be representative of the reference population. This is the third one. They should be qualified. That is eligibility criteria. We have something called as eligibility criteria to select the people into control group or into the study group. They should fulfill that eligibility criteria. Once they are eligible only, they should be participating in the study. That means they should be fully susceptible to the disease and the study. So based upon the eligibility criteria, they should fulfill the requirement, and then only they can be involved in the experiment. Now coming to the randomization. Now what is this randomization? This is the heart of the randomized controlled trial. Now it is a statistical procedure by which the participants are allocated into groups usually called study and control groups to receive or not to receive an experimental, preventive or therapeutic procedure. It is a statistical procedure how these people are allotted into study group and control group. And then based upon that, we will decide whether they should receive any particular treatment or they should not receive any particular treatment. Now, randomization means tossing a coin to decide the assignment of a patient to a study group. So we take the coin and we see heads or tails and see, okay, fine, if it is heads, we will allot him. If it is not, no, will not allot him. So it is randomization. There is no possibility or no predictability of the allotment of the case to that particular group. So the critical element of randomization is that unpredictability of the next assignment. You can never predict that next case will be allotted into study group or into the control group. That is called randomization. Okay, so randomization is an attempt to eliminate the bias and allow for comparability. It is the heart of a controlled trial. It gives the greatest confidence that the groups are comparable so that like can be compared with the like. It ensures that investigator has no control over the allocation of participants to either study group or control group, thus eliminating a selection bias. I hope you all remember selection bias is there in case control cohort we have done. So basically randomization will help you in avoiding that particular selection bias because as we said it is the unpredictability of the next assignment. Randomization is the heart of this control trials. So randomization is done only after the participant has entered the study. That is, after having been qualified for the trial, after he fulfills the inclusion criteria or eligibility criteria, whatever it is. Once he has included in the study, then he is been allotted and has given his informed consent to participate in the study, only then they are allotted into that. It is best done by using even a random numbers. We have random numbers table also with that also, or it can be done with a lottery method, and there are various techniques can be followed for randomization. So the essential difference between a randomized control trial and analytical study is that there is no randomization because in the later there is no randomization because a differentiation into the deceased and non-deceased, that is exposed or non-exposed groups, has already taken place. The only option left is to ensure the comparability in analytical studies by doing matching. Here randomization is different from that particular procedure, where there you are seeing about deceased or non-deceased. There you are seeing you are safeguarding that particular allotment by following something called as matching, so that there is no bias in that. Here it is different. So with that, for today we will stop. Tomorrow we will continue with the rest of the randomized control trial. Thank you.